here is to do some masking to make sure that we can cut out, in my case, the stairwell that should be blocking the text here. If that text was actually hanging in space, we shouldn't be able to see it there, so we need to do some masking. Now this footage changes, obviously the camera's moving, so we need to mask this, but we also need to animate our mask over time so that as the geometry of the scene changes, as those stairs move backwards and forwards, our mask matches with this. Now this is a nice straight line, these stairs that we've got, so this is going to be pretty easy to mask. So there's lots of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you the easiest way. This is not necessarily the best way, but I'm going to show you the easiest way to do the masking, because I think it's a good place to start. Okay, so we need to draw a mask and we need to animate the mask. So that's really easy. What we can do is make sure that our text layer is selected, because that's the layer we want to mask. And I'm going to grab my pen tool. There's a pen tool at the top of our interface next to the text tool. And what I'm going to draw is a rough square that is going to represent the area that I want to mask out. I'm going to start at the first frame of my movie file, and I'm just going to draw a box that's going to mask the text. The first line that I'm going to draw is going to follow the angle of the stairwell that should be blocking our footage. I'm going to draw a fairly large box. It just needs to cover all of the text, and we don't need to be too fine and fiddly. So I'm going to just start by drawing along this line. So I'm just going to click once. I'm going to click once again further down my stairwell. I'm going to go across to the right and click past my text and just draw a big box around my text. And for my final click, I'm going to come back over to where I started, and we should get a little circle icon hop up next to our pen tool. That shows us we're closing the mask if we click on that last point. So it's a really simple mask. Now if you guys have used Illustrator before or any other program that uses the pen tool, you'll know that you can click and drag to make a curve that has bezier handles that you can drag around. Because we've got a straight edge on the stairwell, we can probably get away with a straight line. Okay, so my mask is made. One thing you'll probably notice is that the mask is the wrong way around. It's hiding the little bit of text that we should be able to see, and it's showing the text that we don't want to see. So let's adjust our mask and get animating. Go to your text layer, that's where the mask is. The shortcut for showing masks is to tap the M key twice. If it's already showing, you'll need to just tap them twice again, and that will show you the mask on this particular layer. Now you can have many masks on one layer. You don't have to do this all with one. If you've got a really complicated bunch of objects that are covering your text and your graphics, you can use as many masks as you want. So this mask is adding graphics into the scene. I want this mask to subtract graphics from the scene. So next to the mask name, we've got add. I'm going to change that to subtract. So now we're masking out this text. Now mine, I can just see the corner of the A just peeping around the stairs there. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to hit the V key on my keyboard. That goes back to my selection tool. And what I can do is just click and drag that mask point a little bit if I need to, just to try and clean up that mask position and make sure that the text is being cut out properly. Now you can change this later. You can come back and animate and change your mask at any point in time, so don't panic if it's not perfect as you go through. You can always go back and refine. So now that my initial mask is in the right place, I'm going to tell After Effects we need to animate this mask. So to do that, I'm going to come back down to my mask settings in the layers in my composition, and we need to animate the path of this mask. So to do that, all we need to do is turn on the little stopwatch icon next to mask path. So that means it's going to be animated. After Effects will automatically make the first keyframe, and now as we scrub through our timeline, we can change this mask, and After Effects will automatically make keyframes to update that. So generally what I try and do when I'm animating masks is I try and do as few keyframes as possible. You don't want to go to the first frame, adjust the mask, then go to the next frame and adjust it. You'll be here all year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, once my first keyframe is set, I'm going to go to the end of my footage to where the where the text is fully visible or should be fully visible. And I'm guessing it's about somewhere around here, about 14 seconds for me. So at this point in time, when I'm pretty certain my graphics should be visible, I'm just going to grab my selection tool, so just hit V again, and what I'm going to do is just pull each corner of my mask, or actually sometimes, if it wasn't previously selected, you can drag the whole mask off. I'm just going to drag it off so that my graphics are revealed. And After Effects will automatically make a keyframe there. So as we scrub through now, we should see that slowly this mask does a really bad job of revealing the text. So what I do now is I usually go through it about every, maybe, it depends how long your sequence is. For a short sequence, I'll probably go through about every 2 seconds and I'll adjust the mask. So now I'm going to go back to 2 seconds on my timeline. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see this a little more clearly. And again, grab my V, my selection tool, and I'm just going to grab my mask and drag it across. Now, if you want to grab an individual point and drag it, just click off on your film for a second. That will deselect the entire mask. And now you can grab an individual corner point. If you can't see your mask, or if you can't see the edges of it to select, make sure you've got your text and that mask selected in your composition layers. So I've just tweaked my mask at 2 seconds. I'm going to go forwards to 4 seconds and do the same thing again. Just going to tweak this mask, going to pull my points across and just make sure that my graphics are being masked behind this stairwell. And I'm just going to keep going through this process of moving these points and making sure that my graphics aren't bleeding over into the foreground. One other thing that you might want to do, and again this will vary depending on your project and what you're actually masking, but it's a good idea no matter what you're masking, unless it's super sharp, clean edges that you're masking against, it's a good idea to put a little bit of feathering on your mask. That softens the edges of the mask and makes it look a little more natural, especially with film footage. So usually you only need a pixel or two's worth of softening, and that will just smooth that edge slightly against your film footage. That feathering is in your mask settings. I'm not going to animate the feathering for this one, but there is the option to do that if your project needs it. So I'm just going to do this last bit of masking here. I think I'm almost done. And I'm just going to get my work bar, which is this area here. I'm just going to cover the keyframes that I've made and hit 0 on my keypad, which will preview that sequence for me. It'll just be a little bit slow and laggy while it draws it for the first time. But now I can just keep an eye on my text here and just check that it's masking properly. And I've got a couple of bits there. I can see my masking was just extending into the stairwell a little bit. Yeah, about there, about frame 11 for me. So this is where I go back and start adding and fine-tuning keyframes as you need them. You shouldn't need to keyframe every single frame unless there's a lot of movement in your camera footage. So as I said before, you want to do as few keyframes as possible, so it's as quick as possible. So a little bit of adjustment to my mask there, hit 0 on my keypad again, and just watch that play through. And that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit of tweaking needed at the end, but that's not bad.